The crackdown continues in Cuba following Sunday's mass protests. One person died during clashes with police on Monday, and that's according to Cuba's Ministry of Interior. Meanwhile, more than 100 are said to have been arrested or are missing. Patrick Oatman is in Havana with the latest on the story.
Following wide-scale protests, the likes of which have never been seen before in Cuba, police on the island are cracking down. According to one activist group, more than 100 people have been arrested or are missing. Cuba's president said the protesters were the violent ones, and the government security forces are not committing human rights abuses.
¿Dónde están los asesinatos cubanos? ¿Dónde está la represión cubana?
Where are the murdered Cubans? Where is the repression? Where are disappeared people in Cuba? But outside this police station in Havana, a group of mostly women searched for relatives who are now missing. 3 officers jumped on him. They threw him against the floor, Jacqueline says. They broke his jaw, hurt his wrist, and I don't know where he is. Despite the communist-run government's attempt at blocking internet and mobile service as a way to stop protesters from communicating, videos of protests and crackdowns continued to pop up across social media. Many shared by exiles and relatives in Florida, including Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who tweeted out a Cuban vlogger's live TV interview being interrupted by state security.
La seguridad del Estado está allá afuera.
Security is outside my house, she says. I have to go. CNN could not independently confirm the authenticity of these videos. Many who protested said they were exhausted by Cuba's chronic shortages. The government blames the lack of food and medicine on the U.S. trade sanctions, but Cuban exiles say it's Cuba's own crushing restrictions on private industry that have destroyed the island's economy.
The embargo that needs to end is the embargo that the Cuban government has on its people. They have the goods and they don't give it to them. It's a very difficult situation.
Exiles in Miami are also making their voices heard, many marching on a busy South Florida highway this afternoon.
I am now to your right.
While others are hoping to take a flotilla of boats carrying humanitarian supplies to Cuba, an offer the Cuban government has already rejected, saying the aid is just a pretext to create more insurrection on the island. Patrick Oatman, CNN Havana.
In the meantime, as you heard there, demonstrators rallied in several U.S. cities calling for support for the Cuban people as the country faces its worst economic crisis in decades. Here outside the White House, protesters want President Biden to provide humanitarian assistance. And as you heard from Patrick Oatman in South Florida, demonstrators shut down a section of a major Miami-Dade highway as they marched in solidarity with the Cubans who took to the streets in cities all throughout the island nation. And it's certainly been a tough year for everybody dealing with a global pandemic. For the Caribbean region, where tourism is our lifeblood, it's been especially tough economically. But in the Bahamas, on the 48th anniversary of their independence, leaders talk about the hope for the future and how to move forward successfully. One Caribbean News' Deandra Hamilton reports.
When leaders of the Bahamas addressed the citizens and residents on the 48th anniversary of independence, they spoke to the hard times of recent years, the current challenges amidst the pandemic, and the potential of the country despite. Unemployment rates surged in the health and financial crisis of COVID-19. And though life is moving toward the new normal with tourism making a vigorous return, a mass layoff at the Atlantis Paradise Island Resort, still unopened resorts like the Sandals Royal Bahamian, rebuilding still underway in Grand Bahama and Abaco after the hurricane, and continued threats from coronavirus, including its new variant Delta, make the road rugged. Prime Minister Hubert Minnis said vaccine uptake assures a swift bounce back and touted small business buoyancy as key to economic recovery.
Bahamians have the talent to own any type of business in our economy. Let us be thankful to God on this Independence Day that through his blessings and mercy, we are overcoming these most trying of times.
The opposition Progressive Liberal Party is the political machine which ushered the country to independence on July 10th in 1973. Now the current leader, Brave Davis, is pitching his readiness to march the Bahamas out of the grip of the pandemic.
Are able to deliver on the promise of independence. But my friends, that future is not inevitable. It will only come about if we commit to a new direction, commit to bringing about a new dawn for our country. To achieve it, we renew and refresh our vision of nationhood.
The final official note came from the Governor General, who classed Bahamians as overcomers.
When I reflect on the last several months, I am reminded of and encouraged by the biblical message of 2 Corinthians 4:8.
And that was our DeAndre Hamilton reporting. Now to the latest on the revival of the cruise industry. Cruises to the Caribbean set sail once again just recently. Now the Port of Seattle is preparing for cruises to start back later on this month. Last week, 30 Royal Caribbean employees set sail for a test cruise to Alaska.
Cruise ships have long sat empty since the early days of the pandemic, when onboard outbreaks stranded passengers and crews scrambled for ports to accept them. Now the industry is setting sail once again.
We're thrilled to be back here in Seattle after such a long layoff, being the very first cruise ship and the very first cruise brand to sail to Alaska from our home port of Seattle.
Mark Tamas of Royal Caribbean is here for the simulation voyage, vaccinated employees standing in for vacationing customers on a short Alaskan cruise. This is the second such test after the first out of Miami.
And what they're doing is they're helping us bring our protocols that we've been working on for a long time, for almost a year and a half, to life, and make small adjustments.
All that with observers from the CDC on board. They'll even simulate having a sick guest. The return of cruises means big money for Seattle. Before the pandemic, the industry brought in almost $1 billion for the local economy.
We're really looking forward to this. This simulated cruise will give them a lot of information, and same with the Port of Seattle.
The first real cruise leaves Seattle July 19th. Passengers may not notice some of the changes, like expanded medical facilities, onboard testing, and better ventilation. Others will be more apparent, like a shift away from self-serve buffets. Still, operators could have some work to do, convincing people to get back on board after some of the horrifying scenarios from the start of the pandemic.
The most important thing is making sure our guests feel safe, because that really is going to give them this comfort level to relax and have a great vacation like they really want to do.
And meantime, this comes as Norwegian Cruise Line is suing the state of Florida over its vaccine policy. The state passed a law in May forbidding businesses from requiring proof of vaccination. Tuesday, the cruise line filed a lawsuit against Florida's state surgeon general. Norwegian says the law places it in an impossible dilemma of choosing the health and safety of passengers or breaking state law. The company's CEO has said cruises might have to skip Florida and use ports in other states to launch trips bound for the Caribbean. The CEO also said ships won't sail unless 100% of the passengers and crew are vaccinated.